Steven Silas, a brand new era. We should mention he was actually a finalist for the Rockets job when Mike D'Antoni got it. D'Antoni's out. Silas is in. You just heard Woj say he can deal. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, he can deal with big-time personalities. But, Jay, you're saying right now what the Rockets need to deal with is deciding, are they a contender or what are they planning to do with so much money tied up in two dudes?
Well, that's the question. Look, this team has talent. They doubled down, tripled down with small ball with Daryl Morey. It did not work out. Now you have a new head coach. Even though he has incredible experience, worked with Luka Doncic, has worked with a lot of big-time players, Stephen Curry as well. I guess the question is, will this style of basketball work? And if not, what tradable assets do you have that can make you change up what your new style is going to be? So if you're looking to market, Russell Westbrook and James Harden are due $80 million next year. So what are the tradable assets? And the biggest asset that you have is probably Russell Westbrook. Now, I'm not saying to break these two up, but if you're going to run it back with small ball, you have to change up the style in which you play. You need to get James Harden to buy into that. I don't know what pieces that will require in order for Houston to come out of the West, but let's be real about it, guys. The West is loaded. The West is loaded. I know people use that argument, well, look what happened to the Bucks this year and other teams that came out. But, look, this year was unprecedented. We played in the bubble. It didn't work out that way. But Houston, can you win with small ball is a question. I don't think you can. It's been proven.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they'll be coming out of the West. That's for damn sure. I think when you look at the teams that's there, whether it's the Lakers or the Clippers or Golden State or Denver or Utah and Dallas is there. And so how do you run it back? This was invented by Daryl Morey for Mike D'Antoni. This is what they wanted to do. And they won a lot of games doing it.
They did.
But I don't see where they're going to improve by running it back. I think what you try and do in this situation is you try to just rebuild with some assets, whether it's both gone or one gone. Who can you get the most value for? Is it a Westbrook to the New York Knicks because of the snack, crackle, pop and some of the things that he adds to the equation? Is it a James Harden to potentially maybe a Giannis connection in Milwaukee?
Wow. To
pair that up, and maybe you get future assets from Milwaukee because of that. I don't know where it pushes them at in terms of luxury tax and if they're willing to do all of those sort of things. But I think those two together, and I said it from the beginning, I never thought that those two together would ever work in terms of winning a championship and bringing a championship to Houston.
Well, that's what I said. If you're James Harden, how patient are you? How patient are you? You're 31 years old. All right, are you looking to rebuild at this stage of your career? And also, the last time the Rockets have selected in the first round has been since 2015. That was Sam Decker. Wow. They have no selections in this year's NBA draft.
Wow.
So, Jay,
right? So it's like, how are you moving some? If you're James Harden, what moves are we making for me to win in the next couple of years? If we can't make those moves, then is it time for James Harden to think about going somewhere else if he wants to win a championship?
So if you move, I mean, I'm just assuming, let's say you move Westbrook, what are you getting back in return that's championship worthy to pair with James Harden?
Well, you clear out some cap space. You clear out some cap space. Maybe you get an Alfred Payton. Maybe you get a Kevin Knox. Some teams that maybe some guys you can have maybe for a year, but then they come off your books. Bobby Portis maybe.
Yeah, but now I'm 31, dog. Now you making me 32. I'm James Harden,
or
right?
You use all those assets and you try to lure somebody else into a bigger trade for a bigger time free agent. But you're also going to.
But my question to you
also need to change up the style of basketball you have to play. You can't play small ball anymore.
But who are you getting that's big that I could pair with James Harden to win a championship, right? Like, who are you getting that? Like, you're talking about trading for expiring contract or a guy who's up, so you could trade for a Giannis to come to a Houston, opposed to him going to Milwaukee.
Yeah, I don't know if I would see Giannis ever go to Houston. I think Giannis is probably going to stay in Milwaukee. But
I'm saying
I hear what you're saying.
A big-time player, though. I'm just trying to think who you going to get.
To be in the West, though, you probably want to try to keep Harden, Westbrook, and then try to bring in a third piece. Like Robert Covington is talented. PJ Tucker is talented. But this team is really, really small.
But we've seen them with a third piece, right? We've seen Siakam. We've seen Chris Paul. We've seen James Harden.
What do you mean?
We saw them together. And they had
with CP3?
Yeah, with CP3.
Well, CP3 and James Harden, yeah, they were. I mean,
And we saw them together. We saw all three of them together.
The question is Eric Gordon, is he that player that can take you to the next level? But he's been injury plagued. He's been plagued by injury. So and these are all the questions that this team has to address moving forward. And it does lead to the question if James Harden thinks he could win a world championship in Houston. It does. That's the question that you're going to ask yourself.
He's going to have to go get a top 5 dude to go with him, though. And that's hard to find.
That's hard to find right now.
It's hard to find any justification for what Justin Turner did. So what should the punishment be? We want to hear from you. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I just want to put in one last word on Daryl Morey. And this is coming from a fan, not a guy that played in the NBA or a guy that played in the NFL. This dude could get the catch radius for key there. You got to make sure, in my opinion, this guy could be my GM any day. Why? Yeah, he may ultimately never win an NBA championship, but he's always swinging for the fences. It's a lost stat. The Rockets have made the playoffs the last 8 years. Believe it or not, that's the longest playoff streak in the NBA. So, and some of these names you might laugh at because some of these guys were acquired over the course of his tenure. But if you're getting me Dwight Howard when Dwight was a thing, you're getting Chris Paul, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Clint Capella, Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell. Some of those guys are bigger stars than others. But every single year, he looks at it and says, what can we do to get better? This dude made more trades with the Rockets than most guys will make in their entire career. He's always swinging for the fences. And if I'm not a Laker fan, or I'm not a Celtics fan, or I'm not a Warriors fan when they're back up, if I'm a fan of one of the other 27 teams in the league, I want that guy because he is going for it every single year.
And that's why I think I'm slowly becoming a fan of the 76ers. I picked them last year. I thought they were going to get to the championship. It didn't work out. But now with a guy like Daryl Morey, when that becomes official, can surround Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons with the right pieces to help them win a world championship.
Well, from the organization that you are a partner with, the Sixers, how did Daryl Morey end up as the president of basketball operations?
Sure. Good morning, guys. Good to be with you. So, look, after the end of this past season, I think it's fair to say we were all disappointed with where we were. I think you've got to turn negatives into positives. And I think led by Josh Harris, we had a major mission to figure out how do we upgrade all aspects of the basketball organization. It started first with Doc Rivers, got an incredible coach, one that Philadelphia fans are really fortunate to have. And then when Daryl became available, if you kind of cut through it, he's the same guy we tried to get 2.5 years ago and weren't able to get him. And literally within hours of him becoming available, Josh Harris reached out and said, I want to figure out how we can get him to be our president of basketball. And we moved incredibly quick. We did it with Doc. He was hired within days of him becoming available. And the same thing with Daryl. When Daryl became available, immediately Josh acted. And we figured out how to get him in to become our president of basketball. And I'll tell you, all in all, when you look at the upgrade the Philadelphia Sixers have made from the end of last season, which was disappointing, to where we are now, I couldn't be more excited as a partner, and certainly as a Philadelphian. Our fans are so excited about where the team's headed.
Michael Rubin joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, you obviously have Daryl Morey, you have Elton Brand, you have new coach Doc Rivers. How do you envision the dynamic between all these guys working?
Yeah, I think one of the things, I think these guys are an incredible partnership. When you look at Doc and you look at Daryl, I mean, these guys in a lot of ways are opposites. So I think they're going to work incredibly well together. I think it's really exciting. In addition, Elton's, such a great guy, selfless. As soon as he saw Daryl became available, he said, we need to go out and get this guy. This is how we can win championships. So these are three guys who just want to win championships and bring Philadelphia chips. And so everyone's incredibly focused, working so well together already, and so passionate about what we can do for the city of Philadelphia.
Michael, the league and Adam Silver are somewhat concerned about the pre-Christmas start for the 2020-2021 season. Where do you stand on how the NBA should start the season this year?
Yeah, look, the way I look at it is we have an incredible commissioner in Adam Silver, and I think Adam, together with the players, are going to sort that out. Certainly, there's a lot of pressures coming from all different areas, but they're going to get that sorted out, and they always work well together to get to the right outcome. I know we're going to do something that's in the best interest of the players and something that works for everyone.
When you look at the situation, we mentioned it at the start, you're the executive chairman of Fanatics. Why have fans been so eager to purchase championship games gear from the Dodgers and the Lakers?
Yeah, these have been two incredible hot markets. The Lakers were actually beat our previous NBA record by more than 2x. So it's 2 times bigger than any hot market in the history of Fanatics. And that shows just how great NBA fandom is, and certainly Laker fans as well. And the Dodgers become our second biggest hot market in the history of company. In the history of the company, I think it starts with e-commerce is doing incredibly well, and that's about 80% of our business. Certainly with the pandemic, you've seen a big step function up in e-commerce sales, and certainly Fanatics is benefiting, again, with that being 80% of our business. But these are, sports are doing great. I think fans are so excited about supporting their teams. I think during the pandemic, there's been, people just want to be excited about certain things. And we've seen that both with the Lakers and the Dodgers.
And Mar, you and I talk about this all the time. So it's like, I'm curious to get your perspective on this. A lot of fans are saying, well, NBA ratings are down. What do your metrics show? You guys have a little bit more of insight in that category.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like when you look at a brick and mortar retailer, and if you say we're only going to measure the sales of the stores and not look at e-commerce, that's the same way if you just look at television ratings. When I think about ratings, I look at what's overall fandom, and certainly social media is so much more important today than it was just a few years ago. So I think when you look at the NBA, fandom is incredibly up. I just looked this morning, year to date, NBA sales are up 63%. And that's really very indicative of where NBA fans stand. And I think if you look at media consumption, the issue is television media is a smaller percent of total media consumption than it's ever been. Social media is more important than it's ever been. So I think NBA fans are more passionate than they've ever been about the sport. I think you're just seeing more consumption in other forms of media and less in traditional television.
Michael, with fans not able to spend money going into stadiums, how much have sales increased for you guys during this pandemic?
Yeah, look, e-commerce sales, which, again, is about 80% of our business, have been really strong. We're up nearly 30% year to date. Now, we also have a wholesale business that supplies the brick and mortar retailers, and that business has been, terrible. It's down about 50%. But e-commerce is really strong. I'll tell you the most interesting thing. When sports were paused in March, I thought that fans would say, hey, until sports come back, they're not going to support their teams. It was exactly the opposite. There was incredible support. Fans want to go online. They want to buy the merchandise of the teams they care deeply about. And really, business was terrific during the entire pandemic, even when there was no sports for 5 months.
Michael, before we let you go, I want to ask you, you worked with Meek Mill and Jay-Z to form a Reform Alliance recently and had a huge social reform. To tell us about the impact the Reform Alliance had in getting the bill signed in my state of California.
Yeah, well, it was a really big win for people in California and for the Reform Alliance. We've got a goal of getting at least 1 million people out of the criminal justice system while keeping communities safe. And what a lot of people don't understand is America has 5 times the rate of incarceration of the rest of the world. And in California, Gavin Newsom, the governor, just signed into law just a few weeks ago a bill that put a limit on how long you could be on probation. Up to no more than a year for a misdemeanor, no more than 2 years for a felony. And that was an incredible step forward. And I think really transformative, one that's going to help hundreds of thousands of people directly and millions of people and their families indirectly. So really proud of what's happened in California and a big step forward. And we need to do the same thing in every state in the country. We started the Reform Alliance, inspired by what happened to my good friend Meek Mill when he went to prison 4 different times for not committing a crime. And we use that to, again, turn a negative into a positive, exactly what just happened with the Sixers the offseason. And, we have a goal, again, of getting at least 1 million people out of the system. Of the 6.7 million people that are in the system today, we'll keep the community safe. And I think it was a big step